I've been told by Martin not to really introduce Martin, so that's a bit difficult. So Martin Trojer, I think probably the first or second person in Juxt on the market project. We sort of drew swords, and I think it's fair to say that, like, as a company, we try to be on the frontier a bit, right? We don't claim to be like out and out the thought leaders in everything. We just try and keep abreast of what's going on so we can help our clients. Martin is that kind of person that's just further beyond. Right, so if you really want to know what's coming down the pipeline, Martin's the person, and you scared people half to death last year in the courtyard outside when you were talking about the rise of agentic sort of development, and you were right, yeah. Everyone came away, oh, did you talk to the guy from Meta? It's like it's scary stuff. But no, we're all here, and we're thriving still, so some of that came true. That's it. Thank you again for everyone for coming. It really is a fantastic crowd. Lots of you know each other. It's a really good sort of network, and just a great bunch. And massive thanks to the speakers, again, for giving up your time. And it's a big thing to prepare a talk and to come on here in front of this crowd and present. So massive thanks for that. And without further ado, I think we can get on to Martin Trojer.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to my talk. It's about surviving the Claudepocalypse. So this is the horde of AI agents coming for us, maybe. It's great to be back. Like I said, I did a talk 10 years ago at the first XT conference. And you might wonder how I spent those 10 years. How do I spend my time between the talks? Well, I'm a software developer. And most of that time, I've been at a large American tech company. And been doing all kinds of things during that time, from like large-scale infrastructure to developer tooling. Right now, I'm in the research part of the organization, where we train coding models, trying to improve agentic harnesses, stuff like that. However, this talk is not a look at what's happening at the research level. This is more from a practitioner's point of view, about using coding agents and what's the implications of it, right? So it's kind of a high-level talk with some more concrete ideas and tips and tricks sprinkled in. So for the last year, I spoke to some of you. Already a year ago, I was heavily leaning into the use of agentic agents with a good support from my company. So I'm been kind of code-free for a year at least. I looked at some Rust code the other day, and what is this FN thing? I mean, I had to ask Opus, and he told me, so that's great. So this talk is kind of, taken from my experiences and things I've seen of companies using AI agents at the large scale, basically, right? So that's what you're up for here. One more thing before we begin. This is the obligatory disclaimer. This talk is my own personal observations. This is not my employer's general, view of AI. So please bear that in mind. All right, let's begin. So something has changed. I think a lot of you have been in the game of software development for a while. And I guess we all get whiplash of the rate of change and the kind of trying to come to grips with, the just enormity of what's going on in our field. And I guess we are also surprised of how well these language models kind of work with code, right? It's taken everybody by surprise, and we all get vertigo every now and then with new model releases on just how capable they are. And in this talk, I've been tasked with, tackling the big existential questions, right? So right in the morning, we're going straight for the big ones. So questions like, what does it mean for us as developers, and what's left for us humans to do? So you're in for some philosophical, thoughts at the end. But just to cut straight to the chase, I think the honest answer is Nobody knows yet what it means, because we're in the middle of the storm. Everything is changing so quickly. So we are just kind of playing by ear at the moment. But I think hopefully I found some kind of more bigger picture trends that might be applicable. And if I have to find one, like the main implication for developers that cut across all industries that I've seen as a result of the march of AI agents, it has to be this. And this is new expectations, right? And this is something that we all, as a developer, has to deal with. So what was an impressive output from a developer a couple of years ago is not that impressive anymore. Not everything, but a lot of things can be done faster. For example, prototyping, refactoring, stuff like that can be churned through a lot faster, and we are all still calibrating on how to use it the best way and how to leverage this new tool the best way and accelerate the best way. But at the end of the day, the kind of goalpost has moved, right? To feel good about your work, your work now is to find a way to leverage these new tools to live up to these new expectations. So what's considered fast enough has kind of moved. And as far as I can tell, I mean, it's definitely true in kind of my industry, big tech, but I assume that this is also true across a lot of other industries, like regulated industries, etc. as well. So, with that in mind, let's have a little think about the actual code that we produce with AI agents. And I like this term, plausible code. And what I mean by plausible code is kind of the raw output of an AI agent, right? So you go from a vague idea, and then all of a sudden you sit with 10,000 lines of Rust, and I would say that is plausible code. And this is one of the things that's really changed, right? The price of going from a vague idea to a bucket of code has clearly collapsed. This used to be really expensive, and you had to be really careful of which prototype you were working on. But this is one of the concrete changes, right? And I'm going to go with a ladder metaphor here, so bear with me. So what I mean with this ladder is that the rungs of the ladder is the amount of human effort that has been put into this code, right? So you start at the bottom, you're not on the ladder yet. You have talked to the agent a bit, and you're presented with a big bucket of plausible code, right? This is kind of the starting point of your coding journey, maybe, for a particular problem. And if you look at this plausible code, it looks pretty good, right? I mean, there's tests and there's comments. It looks really good. And if you're an experienced developer, you kind of calibrated the wrong way. Because in the old days, when we wrote code by hand, to arrive at this state, to arrive at this kind of code base, a lot of effort would have gone into this code, right? If a human were writing this, they would have spent a lot of time and a lot of effort to arrive to something that looks like this. And you would assume that there was a built-in kind of value and a lot of debugging and heartache has gone into kind of getting to this state. So by just using your old eyes, looking at this code, it looks great, right? Oh, awesome. Why don't we just ship this? But now that it's plausible code, you will be surprised, right? Because in my experience, when you start using this code and kicking it around, there will be a lot of very surprising bugs in there. A lot of obvious things that a human would have caught while they were writing this code that an agent will just completely miss or ignore. So there is a recalibration that has to happen when we start using this code to be really clear that this is plausible code and this is probably not ready to be shipped, right? So going with the ladder metaphor, now we start walking up the ladder a bit. And then eventually, I can see that we reach a state that I call trusted code. So now a human has spent more effort with this code. The bucket is smaller, but a human has kind of read at least the core parts of it, so there is some understanding there. A human has also kind of kicked around the code, right? So a lot of these surprising bugs has been ironed out. And usually at this stage, you say a human can kind of stand behind it and say, well, this is good enough, we can merge this. The final state is proven code. So this is even more human effort has gone into it. The bucket is even smaller. And this is code that's actually been in production, it has been lived with, it's been battle tested. And this is the real goal for all of us, right? We want to write really solid working production code. And as far as I can tell, this is still really hard. Even with the coding agents, it's hard to kind of arrive at this final rung. And it's not clear that this has become a lot cheaper, even with coding agents. So in this metaphor, we kind of walked all the way up, and now we have like the battle-hardened code. And I think this distinction between plausible code and trusted and proven code is important to keep in mind when you work with these agents. Because if you don't, and you just use your old eyes and start shipping plausible code, what can happen? So here's the warning part of the code, some bad things that can happen if you just blindly adopt the tools. And one of the biggest traps you can walk into is this idea of cognitive debt. So what happens is developers get these tools, they get very excited about it, they build more and more and more. The velocity go up, there's more diffs, everything is great, everybody's shipping. But what is typically forgotten is that while velocity goes up, the general understanding of the code base goes down. And this is very dangerous, in my experience. And the problem with this is that it's a delayed tax. You get all the benefits up front, potentially, of increased velocity, but then the bill comes later when you slowly, or the team slowly kind of loses the plot on what the code does and why certain decisions was made and why things were factored, et cetera, et cetera. So here are some examples on how this can look like. The new code smells, if you will, in an agentic world. First of all, the churn goes up, right? And this is, what does it mean? That means, for example, you're drowning in pull requests now. You have, as a reviewer, you have this wall of diffs that you have to deal with. And you get this feeling as a reviewer that there is much more work in actually reviewing code than producing it. So we have flipped the pancake here. And that leads to all kinds of bad things because the quality of the reviews goes down, which also leading to that the general understanding of the code base goes down. And like I said, the effort is shifting. And also, you get this weird mentality when reviewers start resenting doing the review work because somebody spent 5 minutes putting up 10 PRs, and now you have to spend 2 hours reviewing it. And it's not a great situation. And context is lost. So this is kind of human context, right? When the churn goes up, it's very unclear on, you lose the kind of human oracles in the team who kind of knows where all the, where all the bodies are buried. Okay, so plausible code, proven code, cognitive debt. Let's now go into some tips and tricks. So this was kind of the warning part of the talk, the teeing up of everything. So here is some practical kind of survival guides on what I've seen work to kind of alleviate some of these problems. The first thing is, let's talk about the developers we're dealing with. So I work in a very large company, and we kind of you have this standard distribution of developers and their attitude towards these new tools. You have like the enthusiasts and the skeptics, and you kind of have a nice distribution across the board, right? And so this slide is mostly towards the skeptic part of that curve. And companies like I'm coming from, refusing the tools is not a winning strategy. It might not be that true for all industries, but I think in general, This is a new powerful tool in your tool set. It's not going away. The Rubicon has been crossed, right? This genie will not go back in the bottle. So as a professional, it's your job to kind of learn this new tool. So you have to dive in. Okay? So like I said from the beginning, as a professional, it's your job to find a way to include this tool in your workflow. And don't take my word for it. Don't take some influencer's word for it for how to use it. It's your job to kind of find how it fits in your workflow, in your context, for your particular problem, right? So you need to dive in. You need to build those intuitions. And you can only really do this by diving in and using the tools. And finding a way of doing it as well, right? I've been blessed of working in a company where tokens are free. Maybe it's not the same situation for you all, but you're gonna have to find a way to, either on your spare time or on some hobby projects or some work projects, find a way to kind of incorporate this in your workflow. So survival Git, tip number 1, dive in. And do it by building stuff, basically. Number 2, okay, let's say you got some tokens, you're in your corporate environment, and you want to start using it. Where do we start? And a common instinct is just to go for the hard problem that you're trying to solve right now. Or we have this gnarly production bug. Claude, go and fix it. Root cause it, fix it, ship it, and go home. In my experience, that's not a great way of doing it. You should start with boring stuff, because this is where the agents really shine. And it's also where, because when you start, you want to find a task which is something where the agent is good at, but it's also relatively easy for you to evaluate the output. So if it fails, if the agent does something silly, it should be obvious. So it's probably not fine-tuning your business logic. It's probably something more mundane. Like you basically go on your backlog and you look at all those tickets that have been sitting there for 5 years that nobody ever wants to touch. It's like, okay, we have to upgrade this library and get rid of these deprecation warnings. We need to do this big refactor of this thing so we can increase test coverage. Those things, that's what I would start. I would start at the very kind of old, gnarly tickets and have the agent rip it, really solve it. And low risk is usually not low value. Those tickets are in the backlog for a reason, and getting them out of the way can be incredibly valuable, actually. Even though it's not very sexy, it's just really important to get them done because it can unlock a lot more features and improvements down the line. So you need to, so this is a good trick. Start with the boring stuff. And it also builds muscles in a team that's kind of incorporating this to, it's a good, safe way to start building all these intuitions that I talked about in the beginning. Final tip, this comes from Simon Willison, which is an AI dude on the internet. And this is the idea of hoarding code, or hoarding snippets or recipes, that all these kind of hard-earned lessons that the team has kind of built up over the years. This is usually stuff that kind of sits in the walls of a team. So this is how we go to production. This is how we do database migrations. This is how we deploy this part of the application because of all these reasons. Usually this is not written down. Usually there's a couple of dudes who knows how things work, and you go to them and they do it. But in the world of agents, where you really want to lean in and really accelerate, it's super useful to write that down. So you build kind of the idea here is to build a hoard of all these kind of hard lessons and little snippets of code and guidelines and recipes, and store them in a place like the team hoard, where an agent can go and look and find things. Because one of the things that they're really, really good at is kind of combining all these hard lessons to solve a novel problem. And usually it will surprise you, because you're solving a problem and then if you have a well-curated horde, the agent can go and look, and then it can kind of, and then here's the deployment. This is how I want to deploy it because ABC that you probably forgot about. So this is an effective way to make that big bucket of plausible code easier to carry up the ladder, because it generally, in my experience, drives higher quality. Okay, so we're entering the third act now. So this is where I'm going to get a little bit philosophical. So if you look at these survival tips, one thing they have in common is that you can't check out, right? You still have to be intellectually and maybe even emotionally engaged in what you're doing. Because if you check out and you start shipping plausible code, you end up in all these bad places. And so you kind of have to feel it to be effective. And this, I think, is one key differentiator between us humans and our new AI overlords, is that we have this spidey sense. We can feel things, and the agent don't, right? So, lean in to your superpowers. So as developers, our main superpower is just sitting there and being miserable and feeling pain. It's just, oh, this code base sucks. This is bad, this is horrible, and why did they do that way? And we really need to lean into this. And I have a theory that one of the traits of the truly exceptional developers is that they feel this pain acutely. They can't stand it, right? They feel personally offended by a bad PR. You probably met this person, and this is one of the traits. And this is something I think is very effective to lean into in this new world of AI agents. So, this pain or this feeling of unease is a very important signal. Because, don't ignore it. Have to develop this sense, because it's telling you something. This doesn't feel right? It's not sitting well with me. And agents up to now don't have this sense, at least in my experience. They will basically say yes to anything, right? They will just keep building, keep adding more if statements for every single error case that you found, and it just grows and grows and grows and grows. And they usually don't reflect on the whole entirety of the code of what you're doing. They grep and look at small snippets and fix, but they don't have this big kind of, oh, what is this? I've very rarely seen that. So, one of the things that this kind of feeling forces you to do, in my experience, is that if you lean into it, it forces you to kind of dig deeper, to really try to understand, okay, this feels bad, but why is that? And then you start asking why, and you start looking in, and in my experience, you force yourself to understand more what the problem is, what you're trying to solve, etc. And I think this kind of link between the feeling and unease, your superpower, and understanding what you actually is doing is a key part. Because if you don't understand the actual problem, it's very hard for you to come up with the right abstractions. So here's a great quote from another of our AI gods, Mr. Karpathy, where he says that you can outsource your thinking, but you can't outsource your understanding. And I think this kind of hits it on the head, because sure, you can find ways to automate the workflows and get these agents to do all kinds of things, but what they can't do for you is for you to truly understand the problem domain that you're working in, or the problems you're trying to solve, or the code base that you're trying to change. So coming back all the way to the beginning, here now is the existential problem we're tackling. What is left for us humans? I think there is one word. It's to understand what we're doing. So who survives the Claudepocalypse? It's the person that lives up to the new expectations. We don't fight it, we acknowledge it, we find ways to use these new tools to accelerate what we work and our output. Our output is not just bigger, it's also better. We can produce even better code with these new tools. we navigate, we work with all these PRs and code changes without losing the plot, right? We refuse to give up our understanding of what the code does. And some of the traits where you are in this mode is like you saying no a lot. It's like, that's crazy, no, 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 no. You can at any point explain what the system does and why. You understand the big trade-offs and decisions that have been made. You kind of, yeah, you are intellectually and emotionally engaged in what the code does. So you are not the loudest advocate, you're not the biggest skeptic, you're just the professional that just keeps that understanding. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that talk, Martin. That was excellent. A-star, best talk I think I've seen in a
best talk so far, yeah, of the day.
Best talk so far. High bar. So I took a bunch of notes, and I kind of collected on a lot of the themes that you kind of got to where in your last slide, where when you, if you could bring up that slide, when I'm looking at those, and I'm thinking about the kind of people that I've worked with that exhibit a lot of these skill sets. Two things come to mind. Is that one is that some of this judgment, this discernment, systems thinking, this pain that you feel when you look at something and you're like, this is wrong. A lot of that comes from experience, and so I suppose my question to you is, if the people that will do well in this kind of agentic-driven workflow are exhibiting these skills, I suppose first question is, one, do you think that some of these things are a function of experience? And then second question, if they are indeed a function of experience on production code bases, for example, and experiencing that pain in person, what does that mean for new entrants to the industry when we all go off and retire and use all our tokens?
It's definitely, experience is very, very important here. And that's a big part of it. And so yes, I think absolutely yes to your first question. And I mean, the more experience you had doing refactors, working with code is generally useful here. For newcomers, it's interesting. I mean, for the last year when this really have taken off, I haven't been in a situation where my company has brought in a lot of new people. So I can't really tell exactly what's happening, but yeah, I haven't thought deeply about it, what this means for new developers coming up. Clearly, they will learn coding in a completely new way. They will be like AI first. And how will they build up these experiences, and how will they build up this spider sense when things are wrong? I think it's an open question. The few I've seen come up, like interns, etc., they were just there from the beginning. Like they put us old guys at shame from the beginning. They kind of just knew. So it's very hard to answer, but I think it's still important for people to be very clear about the distinctions of the different, for example, the different stages of the code that comes out, and also the importance of, it comes down to kind of a stubbornness of giving up your understanding, right? Just not giving in to the vibes. It's just, no, I'm keeping this. I'm not going to just ship this. I'm going to stay with this. And maybe that's more like a personal trait than general experience. I think there's a big crossover there.
Time for one more question.
Hi, Martin. Thanks for the talk. This is perhaps a bit of a philosophical question as well, but for experienced devs, one of the things that we particularly enjoyed in the before times was that dopamine hit when you crack an interesting problem with code. My experience that disappeared a bit. How do you tackle that? How you live with that?
Yeah, so I think a lot of developers derive joy from different parts of the craft, right? Some are really into the Vim motions, and they kind of love the actual craft of actually doing the editing. I think for me, and for the people that I've seen excelled, It's more like the builders. You kind of have to lean into your building nature, because I derive a lot of, I mean, I used to derive a lot of joy from tweaking my Vim setup, and now I use it more for like navigating Markdown files and doing reviews. But I derive a lot of joy from actually building stuff. So, and that's also been part of, I mean, for me at least, is like both the kind of the actual mechanical work of writing code, but also the feeling that actually building something that works, right? And I personally feel empowered to build more things and try new things. So that's kind of how I justify it for myself of, okay, I lost something, but I gained something else. Before I hand over as well, I just want to point out, I've written this down in like text form, kind of this talk. So if you want to, you can follow that link and where I develop some of these ideas more deeply. So more there if you kind of like the vibe of this talk. Yeah. Thank you.